Okay, this video is about the power of quotients property for exponents. And this one, it gets a little bit complicated because we are kind of combining a bunch of different properties. So this one says that the exponent outside a pair of parentheses applies to everything inside the parentheses, but in this case, instead of with multiplying, we have a division problem here, x to the 7th over x to the 4th. So this says that if we have x to the 7th over x to the 4th squared, this too applies to everything inside the parentheses, meaning we're going to have x to the 7th squared over x to the 4th squared. Then we apply the other property, which simply says 7 times 2 is 14. So we end up with x to the 14th over x to the 4 times 2, which is x to the 8th, and we end up having x to the 14 over x to the 8th, and that simply means we have to subtract then x to the 14 minus 8 is x to the 6th. Do not forget to simplify using the quotient of powers property and subtract to finally get your answer. You never want an answer where you have an x on top, an x on bottom, or a y on top and a y on bottom. Okay. Here's what it looks like the long way without jumping right to our property. If we have x to the 7th squared, that means we have 2x to the 7ths right here. If we have x to the 4th squared, that means we have 2x to the 4ths. So here we have x to the 7 plus 7 over x to the 4 plus 4, which is x to the 14 over x to the 8. Which is x to the 14 minus 8, which is x to the 6th. Now, we can do that if we want to, but like before I've said, if your problem gets a little bit more complicated, this becomes quite a long process. The easiest thing to do is to use our power of quotients property and just say, okay, we've got x to the 7 times 2, which is x to the 14th, over x to the 4 times 2, which is x to the 8th, which will give us x to the 6th. So the easiest thing to do is just multiply 7 times 2, 4 times 2, x to the 14th over x to the 8th is x to the 6th. We like to keep it as simple as possible. Here are some examples. Now don't forget to simplify. Go ahead and pause the recording or the video and go ahead and try these. Do the best you can. Remember, what's outside the parentheses applies to everything inside, even a negative 2. This will be negative 2 to the 3rd power, which is negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. Okay, give it a try. Pause the video now. Okay, here are the answers. Do not be alarmed. Step through each problem and see if you didn't get the right answer, see where you made your biggest mistake. Here, like I said, it's negative 2 to the 3rd power, which means we have a negative 8 on the bottom. Here, we end up with a 64a to the 3rd times 3b to the negative 3. Whoa, hold everything. There is a problem here. We have 4 to the 3rd, which is 4 times 4 times 4, which is 4 times 4, which is 16 times 4, which is 64. I don't know where that 3 came from. That does not belong there at all, so ignore that 3. Here I have 64 over negative 8, which is going to give us a negative 8, then a to the 3rd, b to the negative 3. Now, typically, we don't want to have negatives in our answer, but in this case, since we haven't talked about negatives quite yet, then we are going to go ahead and leave that b to the negative 3. However, if we've already talked about that in class, you know that that b will have to come into the denominator, and your answer will be negative 8a to the 3rd, b to the negative 3. So go ahead, again, step through all of these answers, and hey, if I made another mistake, let me know. See you in class.